Hello, everyone. Today I'd like to talk to you about impermanence. Impermanence has many, many layers and is something that, if we understand fully, can reach us right to the doorstep, right to the doorway of awakening. So that's why I want to bring it to you, all of these different layers, discuss some of them today so that we can get closer to this doorway of awakening together. So, impermanence, everything is impermanent. Everything around us, ourselves, all of our feelings, everything is impermanent. But a lot of the times we don't really know that, and we're not really thinking about it, and we're not really in awareness about it at all. So, maybe in discussing some of these layers, we'll be able to remember, especially in times when we've lost the understanding of impermanence and we're really caught up in some afflictive emotions, that impermanence is actually the nature of everything. So, one of the ways that impermanence generally comes to the minds of spiritual teachings is generally, and teachers, is generally first to discuss the big impermanence. Each of us, unfortunately, will have to go through an aging and death. And this is the big impermanence of every sentient being, of every human being on this planet. Unfortunately, death is inevitable. No matter who you are, no matter who we are, we'll have to eventually confront this very unsettling transformation. And so, first, generally speaking, we start to meditate on the reality of death, the reality of a future point where this body and all of these compounded memories, thoughts concerning this lifetime fall away into a single pointed, expansive essence. And then potentially, if you believe in reincarnation, there are next lives, or if you believe in heaven or paradise, there's still a thereafter. And in that case, the impermanence even of this state of single pointed, almost nothing, and almost nothing, not necessarily nothing, that even is impermanent. Because when we look at everything around us, we find we have no idea where it all came from. When we try to remember a time before we were born, we just have a blank space. But out of that blank space came a wiggling, giggling little child that we were, a little baby that then we eventually grew up and had our toddler years and our childhood, and then eventually became an adult and wherever we are today. And some of us may be in different parts of that development as well, if you're a child. But all of these moments came from, again, this point of a grand impermanence of the void. There was a void that we remember, a darkness or a blackness or an emptiness, and out of that then came our entire lives, and eventually we will return to that. So that can be unsettling for some of us. But one of the reasons that we want to begin to engage in the recognition of this future point is that we get so caught up day to day in the importance of all sorts of phenomena around us. And these phenomena are really sensory, in how they appear to us. So it's sight, sounds, all of that, touches, all of that is categorized in our minds in good and bad ways, and we oftentimes get caught up in really hating the bad things and then loving the good things and not recognizing that all of it is impermanent. So, if we can recognize, and this is going into a little bit more fine tuned recognition of impermanence, if we can recognize the moments in our lives where we have unpleasantness, that is impermanent when we're undergoing it, then we will be able to develop patience easier because as we're going through the unpleasantness, we'll recall in a mindful sort of way that it will eventually pass. Whereas if we don't remember impermanence, it can feel all consuming in that moment, as if it will never pass. And we forget that it does inevitably pass. The morning comes in the following, after the nighttime, and then that day eventually ends with a sunset and then a new night, and so on and so forth in our lives. So when we remember again this impermanent nature of and transience that happens uh, and is intrinsic to the world around us, then when we're in unpleasant circumstances, we can remember that it isn't the whole situation of reality, it's just temporary. Additionally, we might also really love certain things and become attached and fixated to certain things, which in our minds can be actually harder to see and notice that we're doing that because when we are becoming fixated, we think, especially if we're getting what we want, we think how good it is. And then when we're experiencing this goodness, for example, we begin to fall away from, again, this recognition that it will pass. And then when it does pass, for example, you'll see a balloon right over here. It was just my wife's birthday. And that moment's passed. Her birthday came and went. We had a great day, but at the same time, it eventually passes. That balloon will eventually shrivel away or get thrown away or, transform to something else. Sadly, probably in a landfill somewhere, but hopefully some little beings will make a home out of it or something. But in the grand scheme of things, we have this impermanence also for things that we love. And that can be very difficult when it's a loved one, for example, who is sick and then passes away, or if it's a great event that we've been spending all sorts of time preparing for. During this season, this holiday season, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of preparation that's made, and we make all sorts of preparations with food as well as decorations for some of us, as well as family time, get-togethers, even communications with others, and then it all comes down potentially to one day or one moment, and then it passes. So I did a little exercise which I'll invite you to do, which was really mind blowing to me because I had never done it before. So whatever your holiday is, and if you have a holiday time, or if you don't, and it's just the day, and for some of us that day is a very challenging day. If it's Christmas Day, or it's New Year's Day, or New Year's Eve, or whatever that is, when you have an event with Hanukkah, again Kwanzaa, whatever that is for you, and you have a moment with your family, friends, Um, and really look look at how much time you actually get of the time that you would say was the celebration. What you might find is that that time is extremely short and extremely fleeting. There's so much preparation, for example, that you might be working and putting things on the table and moving things around and doing all sorts of activities. And at that moment where everyone's around the table or everyone is saying cheers, congratulations, happy new year, or whatever that is like the flash of a blink of the eye. It's like a bubble bursting from just a water bubble bursting. It's so incredibly quick that all of that preparation in some ways can feel heaviness that we didn't get as much out of it as we wanted, which isn't necessarily the right way to feel. Um, but it is actually something that we feel already subconsciously, generally, is that we'll have all of this preparation and then we'll get through this main event and then we'll have this point after that that is like a heaviness, an exhaustion, or a sadness or depression, because what we anticipated and wanted uh, was fleeting. And we had fixated along the way to a false belief that it would be at least longer than it was. And so when we start to do these mental exercises of recognizing first this big impermanence, and then also recognizing these smaller impermanences, such as seasonal impermanences or holiday impermanences, then we can then bring it in even closer and then recognize every day how there are different feelings, different thoughts. It's not just the external world that's changing, it's our own minds, it's our own hearts, it's our own moods. Even if we're not people that would consider ourselves moody or having big fluctuations in the way that we feel every day, we can see that our thoughts, if we start to look, we can see that our thoughts are changing. That every day there are different thoughts in our minds based on this interaction between ourselves and the world around us, between friends and family and all of those close ones to us. All of that comes in sort of a fluxing, vibrant way. We might hear from someone we didn't expect to. We might be annoyed or have something challenging happen to us during the day. But all of that changes day to day. It's not exactly the same. And because of that, we actually, generally speaking, react. We're happy when good things happen, and we're sad and miserable when bad things happen, for example, because we don't recognize that even this moment right now, even the finest moment, is so transient that it can't be accessed. And now we're getting into the most fine tuned types of impermanence. That at every point of our lives, we don't actually know what's about to happen. We don't know what kind of feelings we're going to have. We don't know what kind of thoughts are going to pop into our minds. We don't know what kind of people or animals or forces, external forces like weather, like other cars on the way to work, or while we're driving somewhere or walking somewhere, for example, might pop out of nowhere and change our lives forever. We don't know this. And we see these examples around us of really, really wild circumstances, freak accidents or freak circumstances that we'll discuss or we'll see around us. Uh, But even if we don't think, okay, that's not common, right? That's why they're called freak. It's not common that lives will change drastically for everybody. But they do change for some of us radically, drastically, and momentary. No one expects for life to go the way it goes exactly. Our expectations are never fully realized. And because of that, if we remember moment to moment this, then what can happen is we can start to calm down. And the reason why we can start to calm down is that the only thing we can do in the face of this is relax. We are totally out of control to the greater sphere around us, and we are absolutely out of control with the impermanence. We can't choose whether or not we want something to be permanent or impermanent. It's going to be impermanent, period. And because of that, we just have to go along on that journey. And the best way to go along on such a journey is to relax, because that's the best we can do. And then we'll feel okay with whatever occurs. And additionally, when we relax and we go along with the impermanence of things, then we can also heighten our awareness of how our own ways of being individually really affects how we respond and react to this impermanence. And this can be a little heady, but it doesn't have to be. Every moment we feel a certain way about the world around us. And oftentimes, because we're not relaxed and we're not aware, we don't realize that we do feel a certain way about the world around us. But when we relax, pause, and are aware and go with the flow, if you will, but go with the impermanence of things, then we will start to become more and more aware about these hidden emotions, these hidden feelings that we have about things. And then we can become more aware about how those emotions, especially if they're negative, but also if they're fixated in a positive way, are flawed. How they're based on something that is not really permanent. And because of that, they don't need to have any sort of power over us. They don't have to be as leading in our minds as they are, oftentimes feeling like they're leading us into a certain really vibe or powerful mood or something like that. They don't have to do that because they themselves are also impermanent, and their base is what they're based on, or what they're fixated to, or thinking about, or basically feeling about, is something that is also impermanent. So as we rest and are more aware moment to moment of our surroundings and how we generally react to our surroundings and respond to them emotionally and mentally, then we can become even more aware and mindful of how these types of emotions are fleeting and generally speaking, if they are negative or fixated in some way, are not really telling an accurate story of uh, the real world in any sort of permanence. And so then we can actually gain more and more realization of the present moment, and additionally gain more confidence that it's okay to let go. It's okay to be ready for whatever the world needs or throws at us or appears as. And if we feel that way and we gain confidence in that, then when we do meet our final impermanence, our big end, then we'll be able to invite that like an old friend, like nothing is scary about that, like nothing concerning, because we will remember that this is actually just the same as any other moment. Any other moment, we are resting, at rest here, at rest now, waiting for the world to appear in a way that it wants to. And then again, it will change. It will all change. And so we don't need to fear death. We don't need to fear the next life. We don't need to fear whether or not we go to heaven or somewhere else, because in any case, it will be impermanent. And in its impermanence, in the mode of its impermanence and the moments of it, we will practice the exact same way that we practice here, which is just relaxing, being aware, and allowing things to be as they are. Thank you so much. I hope that something in my words were meaningful. If you'd like to leave us a comment with some feedback or questions, I'd love to discuss with you. And if you have some perspectives about how you practice impermanence or any doubts about the nature of impermanence, please share with us so that others also will find those helpful. Thank you.